People think that they can just lose weight by adopting a once a meal a day diet and by doing long hours of exercise to actually make the weight loss faster, but that's not true.
Simplify life, amplify wellness. Welcome to the Back to Basic podcast. We are at episode 2, brought to you by Engage Life. My name is Paresh and I'm founder and CEO of Engage Life. And I'll be your host. And with 12 years experience in the industry, what I've seen is the complexity of wellness and how people want to adapt to wellness. That's why we created Engage Life to make things simple and have clarity and allow users to have actionable steps towards better health and well-being. And for today's podcast, we are diving into a very interesting topic of overweight and obesity. Later we'll talk a bit about the stats, what is the impact in the nationwide and also globally. And we'll look at some of the interesting misconception and solution available for us with our special guest that we have today. So without further ado, let's introduce our special guest for today that we have. He is a health and wellness expert with over 15 years of experience in nutritional and functional medicine. Renowned as a biohacker, I think one of the first biohackers in Malaysia as well. And he specialized in evidence-based health plans and diagnostics to prevent chronic diseases and enhance vitality and promote longevity in, how can we be more younger, right? And beyond his medical expert, he's also a Malaysian fitness icon, embodying the principle of personalization, optimized health approach. So welcome, Kit Mah, to the show.
Thank you, Paresh. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we are very grateful to have you for our show. This is our second episode. Maybe you can share with us why did you pursue this field and how did you got into all this?
Sure. So I started this field because in my personal journey, I feel that the standard approach or the mainstream approach to health is not enough. When I was young, I had accidents, I had injuries, and most of the time, this usually resorts to the standard way of treating it, which is not the approach I want to go for. And as a result of that, I explored various alternatives, and who knows, by adopting those not so common approaches, I managed to resolve my health issue, and it allowed me to continue doing what I love doing, especially physically. But at the same time, there is so much more to that. So it's a self-improvement, but mainly a self-improvement looking at a whole new level and trying to piece together all of these pieces of knowledge. And they call this thing called functional medicine, which is identifying root cause and rectifying it at there. So I think that is what led me to this industry that I'm so passionate about. I wish I can live a very functional and high quality life for as long as possible. And
right,
that's my
perfect.
goal.
Yeah. And Kit Mah, I've known you personally, so I would say that I've seen you in the corporate life as well. And you know how you manage to juggle your health and well-being. I think that's one thing that I would like the listener to also know. And you mentioned about a health problem. I'm not sure whether you are keen to share. I know you look very good for your health issues that you have when you are a little boy, right? So maybe you can share with us a bit more personal on your story.
Sure. I have thalassemia, but it's not the major thalassemia. But still, when you have something like a disorder like thalassemia, you're actually very prone to be very weak physically. So environmental factors really affect you a lot actually. When I was young back then, I was very extremely frail, weak, pale looking. I couldn't compete and complete most physical activities easily. And that actually made me very different in terms of being bullied in school, being made fun of as well. So for some reasons, I just can't seem to excel well in physical feats. And that is what led me to venture into fitness.
Yeah.
Because with fitness, following a structured program or a structured plan, you can actually improve yourself. So I think that's how it started off with, not by following the typical advice where they say you need some weight gain powder, some weight, take more milk, take more multivitamin from, those big companies, brands and all that. So those are never the solution. The main solution is everyone is different. You need to know your body. You need to know what you're being exposed to and how you take charge of it from there. So I did that and things changed. And of course, throughout the years, I stumbled upon many challenges. I had a lower back injury before as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, a very severe one that requires me to do a surgery, but I did not go for the surgery. I went to a chiropractor. I went to strengthen my whole core. And that even allowed me to lift heavier than I could ever before. So a lot of things didn't always go as what they predicted me to be or to end up with. Like they say I couldn't lift anymore. I should be happy if I could just ride a bicycle. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to lift weights. I wanted to squat. I wanted to deadlift. So I was able to do all of that. And, I managed all of it through application of proper physical training and, of course, nutrition and ultimately optimizing everything else.
So we would say like fitness really changed your life lah.
Yes. I think fitness is just an enabler. It's not the end-all and be-all solution. Fitness can definitely change a lot of things, but one thing is it's an enabler for you to achieve a certain status. But still, there are many more things beyond the fitness. Because why I say that with certainty is because look at the world around you. You see many fit people out there. They are athletes, they are runners, they are footballers, but they die prematurely. They die very young.
True, that's true.
And that's not what I want to be. I don't want to die young. Yeah. So what is that beyond that fit body, beyond that six pack, beyond that low body fat percentage? So it's not about that alone, but it's really about the internal health that matters. And that's where, again, functional medicine comes in, because it's about investigating the root causes.
Yeah, perfect. I think you mentioned it quite well, and it's very inspiring in terms of your story. I mean, I'm personally glad to be part of the journey as well, and I think a lot of things our user can take away is the persistency of doing something, and also of course fitness can really play a huge part in them changing not only your body but the way you think and the opportunity that arise from it. So with that being said, I think one of the key issue about Malaysia, or what we are really facing today, and is already in our doorsteps, right, is obesity.
Yep.
So with some stats over here, I think the National Health Screening Initiative, NHSI, in 2023 published that half of Malaysian, or 54.4% to be exact, are actually overweight and obese. And this is quite alarming. As you can see, the last statistics in 2011, we only have like 44.5%. So it's quite a major increase in terms of obesity rates and overweight in Malaysia. And it doesn't seem like it wants to drop. So Kit Mah, as a biohacker yourself and health expert, what do you think is the most impactful strategy for us to, that people that are struggling with obesity, what do you think they can do?
I think the number one thing is actually education. And the education doesn't start when you go to school. It starts the moment you are born. So what the parents portray or follow will eventually be cultivated by the child.
Right.
I'm quite thankful that I'm at this stage of my life where I just have a newborn, and
I was just about to say you were actually a dad as well, right?
Yeah. So I get to actually walk the talk and promote exactly what I'm trying to say here, where I believe that the fundamental essentials are there, where you don't expose your child to processed food, to junk food, to those kinds of things, because those are the things that will be then treated like a norm. And eventually when it is a norm, then that's where they're going to build up these bad habits over the years, and it's just going to promote those diseases or disorders. So it's a lifestyle factor. Definitely lifestyle plays a major role in this, and it always starts with education.
Yeah. So you mentioned about education not only in like our age, right, in corporate or in elderly, but as soon as you start, you come to the world, there's a start of the education. And I think you mentioned about lifestyle, very important factor in everything that we do. And why do you think the obesity rate in Malaysia is just going like up and up? Why you think is it educational factor? Where are we not doing enough, or people are not aware about it, or why you think is this just increasing every single year?
I think it's not just a Malaysia problem, but it's a worldwide problem. So in the whole world, this is actually the number one thing. And one of the main culprits for that is because of the vast availability of all these processed and junk foods.
You mean accessibility, like easy to get, grab and go, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So these are all made in widely available, easily available and accessible. And also one very important thing is people seek for it for convenience. So due to all these factors and due to that cultivation of habit, eventually it only just make things worse. The number of obesity worse, the number of diseases, chronic diseases worse as well. So that's where the concept on touching on whole foods rather than processed foods, that's I think the number one thing to identify and to know that there is a major difference in terms of these choices that you make on a day-to-day basis. The processed foods should be avoided. And these companies that produces these processed foods, they actually fund their own research to promote and to actually convince you. They even do marketing campaigns convince you that it's normal and it's okay to consume it. But in my honest opinion, it's not okay. If you were to put that mindset that it is not okay and that is definitely something that is artificially created to invoke a certain feeling, a taste, and to promote that kind of addiction and create that kind of norm that we need it in order to survive, then I think you need to understand that and to know that, and then you can actually step away.
So you would say that the culprit is accessibility, right?
Yeah.
And also marketing, right? One of the
Correct.
key things it's out there is there's so much money spent into marketing such products, right? And having that is a norm to be able to consume it on a day-to-day basis, right?
True. So that's why education is so important. But besides then looking at the education bits, it's also knowing that it's not about just receiving the education from one party, from what the so-called mainstream healthcare is telling you about, but to actually be open-minded and be logical, to have a very good questioning skill and to ask and to actually analyze that if it's really so simple and that's the case, where typically they just say that you need to exercise more and eat less, then why aren't we achieving that goal? Why are there so many people increasing year after year in terms of overweight, obesity, and even chronic diseases? So it's a very simple kind of logic to actually ponder upon. So obviously something is not done right, and these fast food companies are just being creative, and more things are there every single year.
All right, thanks Kit Mah for sharing that. I think we of course, it's quite interesting to see marketing plays a huge factor in terms of what we do as well, and how it influences our thought process in consuming all this food, right?
Yep.
And would you say sedentary lifestyle or even cultural habits, there's one of the culprits to cause obesity?
Oh, certainly.
So the nasi lemak that we have,
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, we're in an era where we rely a lot on convenience. We rely a lot on utilizing things to make things easier. It's very different back then, where we may need to work a bit harder, we need to move more, but then now it's hardly the case. So oftentimes, even at work, we sit behind the screen in that position without much movements. We are most of the time in front of the screen when we were young as well, playing video games and all these things. So all these things is actually a sedentary lifestyle, and that basically means you just burn less calories. So the calories models will hold true no matter what, because yeah, you are eating a lot, you're having nice cakes and treats and foods, but you're not moving much.
Yeah.
So that eventually will only
So no
lead.
calorie out.
Yeah, so that is a very basic concept. So basic concept, if most people just apply it, they exercise right and enough, and they eat less, they eventually lose weight.
So the basic concept, you would say exercise, right? What would you say?
Yeah.
Rule of thumb.
Yeah, so that is a fundamental, and that is something that in general widely accepted. But then again, there will always be instances when that does not apply, especially as we age, especially to what we are exposed to, especially when we have certain health conditions. So that is also another contributing factor, the environmental factor, that makes us unable to follow through with that simple plan to just eat less and exercise more.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about so many factors. I think one of the things is cultural factors, right? When our parents, make sure you finish your rice, make sure you eat rice. Did you eat rice already or not? Right? All these kind of things. I mean, did you had the same thing as well growing up?
Yeah, I was taught that you have to finish up all the rice on the plate. If not, you will have pimples on your face and those kinds of things. Yeah. I mean, basically, we are taught to eat all our food and don't waste food, and that's true. But then again, what type of food is there for us to eat? Because if you say that don't waste food, then I think that don't waste eating food that are unnecessary and that has no nutritional value. For example, a donut. It has no nutritional value. It's mainly just for enjoyment. And there are better food choices. So about knowing those food choices and making those right food choices, that is very vital actually to promote lifelong health.
Right. Fantastic. So we will dive into the solution in a bit, but I think we're talking about obesity, we're talking about the root cause of obesity and all that, together with the cultural habits that we have or we grew up with, right? And let's look at a bit about the impact, right? Obesity and overweight actually causes close to 200 different types of NCD diseases, non-chronic diseases, such as cancer, diabetes and stuff. And we all know last year, insurance premiums had hiked, hospitals talking about, hey, medical cost is going to increase, there's a new system going to be put in place for our government hospital as well. So with that being said, and a lot of buzz were talking about productivity losses in Malaysia, what would you say the health and societal impact on obesity or health issue will be?
I think it's going to be tremendous because if it's not being curbed and if we are not providing the right awareness and education, then it's just going to be a very much like a vicious cycle. Yeah, and we want to break away from that vicious cycle because at the end of the day, it's the whole world that will suffer. Yeah. So I think, again, what I do in my field, it's really a one-on-one manner where I actually educate them and empower them. Ultimately, it's really about everyone just waking up and realizing.
Good word to use, waking up, right?
Yeah. So they need to wake up, they need to realize, and they need to look at beyond just simple measures. Having the right lifestyle, encouraging movement, encouraging exercise, training is all fantastic. But it is always about making the right choice when it comes to the diet as well.
And you mentioned about lifestyle. So how does lifestyle and nutrition play a key role in reducing this obesity and preventing it?
Well, to me, I like to say that the diet is king and exercise is a queen. So together they make a good kingdom. Yeah. So this is what I used to say, and it's true. It plays hand in hand. It definitely goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I want to also talk a bit about the nutrition part, since you are a nutrition and functional medicine, and people understand nutrition in a very surface level. I think when I met you, I really kind of dive a bit deeper into the types of food, the food labeling. So what will you say a good tips and good rule of thumb we should do when we're looking at our nutrition?
So number one, don't consume processed foods.
Okay.
Go for whole foods. Processed foods are devoid of all the nutrients, and they probably add the nutrients back in synthetically, and it's never the same by getting it from whole foods. And you have to aware that there are a lot of innovative ways now to make a food appealing or tasty. They can include in artificial sweeteners, artificial flavoring, and by combining, food manufacturers knows the secret of making you addicted and making you crave more of the food. So by combining things like sugar and fat together, it just makes it very much high, not only high in calories, but pretty much they are trying to hook you into it. So the key to that is really to make peace by, not to say that you don't want to try it, you can go ahead and try it, but be very aware of what it's going to do to your body, and be very aware on the outcome that can happen if you were to get hooked on it. So it
would you say moderation is the word?
Definitely, not really moderation, but minimization. So people always talk about moderation and balance, and that is actually the same message that these major big food companies tells you. And they will even say that, you need sugar for your energy and all these kinds of things. But in honesty, minimization. Because we've been surviving for millennials without having processed foods. And look at the outcome now after consuming all of these processed foods. So typical nutritionists, typical dietitians, they will say that it's okay to have it in moderation, in balance. But I would say that the minimization, and it starts young, it starts with the parents being aware. It starts from having your home without any of those products available. You can have other products available that are more nutrient dense. Nutrient dense, it means whole foods that are nutrient dense. For example, things like eggs, things like sweet potatoes, vegetables, and all those kinds of food that are whole. So those are the preferred food options, and those should be started when young.
Fantastic. And when you are talking about all this, there's so many different misconceptions out there. While we're talking about solution, the issue about us is we get brainwashed, right? Like what you mentioned. And there's so many misconceptions. And what our team have done is we have published a few myths related to obesity on social media. And we would like to get your insights on this. So, I think the first one will be drinking plain water after a meal causes weight gain. So, what do you think was the percentage voted true and false? How about false? How many people you think voted false? How many people you think voted true?
I guess false, probably 80%.
80%. Yeah, actually, you are right. Yeah, a lot of people voted false. So, what do you think about this the myths?
I think it has nothing to do with weight gain. Okay, what you mean by weight gain? So weight gain here is not necessarily fat gain just by drinking water. So definitely don't want to drink water after the food. It's actually a pretty good idea because you don't want to dilute your stomach acid, as you want your stomach acid to be optimized to digest the food. So that has nothing pretty much to do with weight gain or weight loss, but it's more for optimal digestion and nutrient assimilation. And it's very important to let your body do the work after you eat by not diluting it with too much water.
All right, fantastic. So we go to the second one. Carbs are the main causes or culprit of obesity. What do you think? True or false?
I would say that it's false.
Okay.
For sure, it's not just carbs. I mean, if you are consuming excessively amount of calories that can come from protein or fat, then there will be a tendency that you will still gain some weight. And also if you don't move much and all. So it's not a straightforward formula, but of course, definitely carbs does play a role. All right, carbs does play a role because carbs actually promote insulin secretion, and it does promote a lot of imbalances as well. So carbs, there are many types of carbs. Sugar is carbs.
Right.
There's also the slow releasing carbs with the fiber in it. So we need to make the right choices when it comes to carb and the right amount as well. Yeah.
And most of our listeners today, they put through, so 67% of them say carbs is the main culprit. I think that's the common misconception that we have, right? Because you say, hey, cut down carbs and then you will lose weight, right? And you just like go starve yourself, not eating rice or eating any carbs, being grumpy the whole day, right? I think that's quite common among us, right?
True. Carbs can be our friend, but we should also know, because if you are diabetic, then definitely by having more carbs, just carbs-based food, high carbs food, is definitely not the smart thing to do. Yeah, because if you say you want to rely on medication and all of that, that's actually something that is just going to promote more and more complications eventually. So cutting off carbs might be a good idea for certain individuals as well.
All right, and speaking of carbs, we have the third one, skipping breakfast helps you lose weight. Our breakfast usually is a very high carbs breakfast, right? In Malaysia especially. Or even we have like very heavy start itself in the morning, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Some nasi goes in, or some roti canai goes in already. So what do you think about this myth?
I think it's true. Don't start your day with a high carb based food. Taking things like even the typical oatmeal, the bread.
So do we skip or don't skip?
I think you don't have to skip.
Okay.
In fact, I would not suggest you to skip if you are a growing child, if you are someone who is into optimal performance. Yeah, you need some food in, and the right types of food is probably something which is higher in protein, because that actually sets you off for the day.
It kicks off your metabolic rate, right?
Yes, there's a thermal effect from the foods, of course. But another important thing is the neurotransmitter.
Right.
So it creates that right neurotransmitter that will fuel you up for the day in order to have a good, productive day ahead. Whether it is for learning or for performance, you want to choose the right food. I think one of the food that has really made an impact to me previously, and I mean right now I do skip my breakfast sometimes, but I still have a drink. So that would be having meats and nuts. So that is actually one very balanced meal, and some fiber as well. Definitely not for everyone, but you can of course include some fiber in there.
Right.
So that is very satiating. It doesn't put you into that hunger spell that you typically get when you eat things like bread, rice, noodles, or oats. Because when your carbs intake is high, your blood sugar increase. That's where your insulin levels will also increase to reduce your blood sugar level. And then later on during lunchtime, when it comes to reach lunchtime, you will just be so hungry.
Yeah.
And then you're going to overeat again. And again, it's a vicious cycle. You're just going to be stuck in that loop. And eventually that is a disease-promoting loop.
So when do we stop? If we're in that loop, when do we say like, hey, I'm going to cut it off?
Well, for some people, it's intermittent fasting.
Okay.
I won't say that it doesn't work. It can work. But you just have to do it right. And you have to do it it depends on the person actually. Whether they can do it and whether it is the right tool for them to use at that point of time. But if not, just make better choices.
By the way, the users, most of them say that skipping breakfast actually help to lose weight. They agree on it.
Oh, for sure. So that is a form of a fasting. And there are benefits to that. But again, is it for everyone? I would say no. It's definitely not for everyone.
It depends your lifestyle,
We pretty much advocate personalization and individualization when it comes to an approach. So although diets, fat diets like ketogenic diets, as you know, intermittent fasting, carnivore, plant-based diet, all that has its use and benefits, but it always depends on at what point in time they're using it for and who.
So, Kit Mah, you have been a nutritional and functional medicine expert for quite long, and I'm sure you have been through a lot of questions, and a lot of people come with different types of myth, and people Google up stuff and come and find for you. So, what will be something interesting you will share with us?
So, I think the main myth I want to say that people think that they can just lose weight by adopting a once a meal a day diet and by doing long hours of exercise to actually make the weight loss faster, but that's not true. So that is actually counterproductive and is not helping in the weight loss process. That is a major myth, that you need to work out a lot, that you need to eat less. It only holds true up to a certain extent. And then after that, what you want to look at is the other areas, such as the hormones. That's very important.
Interesting.
Yeah, as we grow older, we lose some of our vital hormones, both male and female. And that is one of the reasons why the weight gain starts to drastically happen as well. And even thyroid hormones, sometimes it's actually not even functioning well in young individuals, mainly due to environmental factors like environmental toxins exposure, the chlorine, the fluorides, and many other toxics in the environment. And there's another factor which is environmental toxics, and that's known as obesogens. So have you heard of this?
No,
obesogens?
I haven't.
So obesogens are substances that actually wreak havoc to the body, where it actually make the body stores more fat. So it encourage the fat storage, fat promoting to be formed in the body. And mainly these substances are things like, for instance, the plasticizers, like phthalates.
You mean eating from a plastic?
So that's
right?
that's one way to get this exposure. So the buzzword now is called microplastics, and it's so prevalent in
our food,
in the time that we are living now, because they have been finding so much findings that they found microplastics in the human brain, in the penis, in the placenta. So it is almost in every part of the human organs. And it's very concerning, because microplastics and even nanoplastics, they are actually foreign substance that is not supposed to be in a biological organism. And when it is there, it actually causes a lot of damage. And it causes things such as the hormone disruption. So this is just one hormone disrupting compound, microplastics. And these can be categorized all under this term called obesogens, because these substances, like all these chemicals, they only promote fat gain. So unless we know how to eliminate this exposure, it's going to be extremely challenging to lose fat or to lose weight.
Perfect. I think we dive quite deep into the conversation. And for the listeners that just joined in and tuned in, we spoke a bit about lifestyle changes. We spoke a bit about hormones, very interestingly, how hormones actually affect obesity and weight gain. And finally, I think the word that you used, what was it again?
Obesogens.
So we spoke a bit about obesogens, an interesting word that I learned today as well, and how it causes obesity and also weight gain. And since you are mentioning about this, let's jump into some solutions out there. So for people that are going through obesity or managing their weight, how would they tackle this? What would be the steps for them?
Step one, of course, they will have an assessment done on the lifestyle factor.
Right.
Are you living a sedentary lifestyle? Do you just sit and not move about most of the time during the day, during the weekends? So you want to increase that activity output, okay? And of course, dietary choices. So remember I told you about the dietary is the king, the queen is the exercise. So dietary is so important that even though if you don't exercise, but if you eat right, you can actually lose fat. And I have done this so many times, countless times actually, for individuals who are just not making drastic changes to their physical activity. They still pretty much function the same way, still doing the same thing, but just because of the right dietary choices, they see the results. And that's amazing. So it's possible. So it's not always about just looking at that calories equation where you need more calories out than more calories in. Okay, the food choices would play a role. Now, if that is done, that fundamental thing is done, then you want to look at other factors. You want to understand histories, family background, anyone who's having things like autoimmunity, anyone who's having certain diseases as well. You want to do testing. You want to test, because unless you are extremely well aware, like some people are just well aware of their body, they know that something is not right, they know that they even have a tumor, they know it, Yeah. So unless you are that kind of person, which most of us aren't, then you want to go for testing. So test things such as your HbA1c, which is the early indication of whether you are pre-diabetic or not. Many people don't test this, and you'll be surprised at how many people who I've met, they went through drastic measures just to lose fat. They went for bariatric surgery. They even swallow a balloon. You know, you can swallow a balloon to prevent you from eating, to just lose fat. But they don't even know and realize that they are already diabetic. So that's crazy. How can you not know that you're diabetic? And you are only 30 years old and you are diagnosed with diabetic. When you run the test, you will know. Then look at the hormones. And then lastly, look at environmental factors, things that you are being exposed to, like the spray, the pesticide, the herbicides, and all those chemical toxins that we are constantly being exposed in today's modern world. So that would be the step-by-step approach I would go for when it comes to tackling things like obesity or overweight.
So you mentioned about assessments. So, I mean, there's so many different assessments, and I think technology has been, we are quite fortunate to live in the age of technology that there's so many different testings are available for us. So for a common individual, would you say maybe top 5 tests that they should do, or what top 5 things that in terms of testing and assessment they should do? What are the top 5?
Top 5 tests. Tests specifically, or what type of tests?
Yeah, specifically what test? You know, you mentioned about HbA1c. I should test my HbA1c.
Okay.
What else?
Okay, so in general, it depends on what stage they are at. Obviously, if they are still like young, 5 years old, 6 years old, and if they are pretty normal, they don't have any signs and symptoms, then I think might not really be necessary to
How
measure
about someone
things
that is
like
obese,
insulin
you know?
and HbA1c.
Yeah.
So someone who is obese, typically I would test for HbA1c,
Okay.
I would test for insulin, I would do a full thyroid panel.
Okay.
I would also look at the hormones as well.
All right.
And I'll even look at one more marker.
One more marker.
Okay, I'll probably look at their exposure to some of those chemical toxins as well, such
Okay,
as
fantastic.
xenoestrogens.
Yeah, fantastic. Because you know these are not something common that you can get out there. So for the listeners, make sure that you're looking into all these factors as well. And I think I want to ask you this: there's so many solutions out there today, but one of the things we don't know is the motivation, right? Or we really need the motivation to step ahead. Like, you know, if me, I want to step out of obesity, what would be the motivation? What would you say is the largest motivation a person, an individual can find?
So one way to know that is by also assessing their neurotransmitters, like what type of neurotransmitters is dominant in them, and how driven are they to want to make a change. If they don't find that there is a problem, then definitely there is no problem the way they view it, and they are not very motivated to want to make the change. So it's always understanding what motivates
What
them.
drives you?
Yeah, what drives them, what are their underlying issues, even the gut health piece that was not mentioned. So gut health is so important because majority of times, a lot of things due to the gut.
Starts from the gut.
Yeah. Overconsumption of antibiotics and exposure to the pesticides and herbicides and all those things, it actually causes them to have imbalances in other areas as well, including the hormones, immune system, and more. And they may just not be in the right state or frame of mind to even wanting to work on anything else.
Yeah. So yeah, for people that are out there that need some motivation, do tune in to our Back to Basic podcast. We do have our Growing Well Together program by Engage Life in place as well. We hope to bring some sort of societal changes as well. I think, Kit Mah, what you are doing is so perfect to make sure that people get that motivation. Do follow Kit Mah as well for some motivation, yeah. And with that being said, what is the one message or piece of advice you would like to leave the listeners who want to take control of their own health and well-being?
We are all empowered now in this modern time to take charge of our health. I mean, look at some people who have done extreme measures, like even Brian Johnson and all that. So everyone is an entitlement. Everyone has the rights to take charge of their own health. And don't just Google up and read about it, or don't just go and listen to the standard healthcare approach, because if it worked, it would have worked long time ago. But instead, try to explore the alternative approach, such as functional medicine, and that is what I'm specialized in and I'm very passionate about, because I have made tremendous difference for myself and for my clients.
All right, perfect. So thank you, Kit Mah, for joining us for this insightful sharing session. Before we wrap up the session today, we want to hear anything you'd like to share with us or promote to our audience, whether it's about your business or any interesting projects that you are currently doing or something that you are passionate about. So, Kit Mah, you have 15 seconds.
Oh, not 30 seconds.
Yeah, let's do 15 seconds to let everyone know.
Okay.
And are you ready, Kit Mah?
15, not 30.
15, yeah.
Alright.
We'll put you on the burner a bit.
Alright, sure.
So ready? And off you go.
I have created a company called Healthspan Providers that comprise of a team of functional medicine doctors and nutritionists and health coaches. And our aim is to help you to understand the root causes of your problem and recommend you relevant interventions that will work. So that is what I do, and that is what I aim to deliver to my patients or my clients.
Right, so do check out Healthspan, follow them on Instagram, and follow Kit Mah on his IG as well. And wonderful again, Kit Mah, thank you so much for your time. And for our listeners, do stay tuned for the next episode. We will invite incredible guests to join us and share their exciting journey, and also we can have a very interesting conversation on different topics and also social impact wellness issues that we're currently facing. So until then, simplify life and amplify your wellness. Talk to you guys soon.
This podcast is brought to you by Engage Life. Looking to elevate your wellness? Discover community, rewards, coaching, programs, and events, all in one platform. Your wellness journey starts here. Download the Engage Life app today. Available on Google Play Store and Apple App Store.